Yes. If we remember this one, this is just the natural one where we showed how the universal Vecca map plugs into our solar system, right, our galaxy, where this is our 12 stargates here. Over here is our primal light field. Over here would be the gates for the parallel, and up there, you don't see, would be the gates for the parallel light field. Down here you have Earth as universal gate 3, and the Sun on this side of density 1, and its counterpart Rabizod, the Sun, on the density 2 side. That's actually one spot, but it's kind of stretched apart because of the density barrier. There's a lock in between them. This lock becomes significant when we start to understand the anatomy of the beast. Now, we're here at Earth. There's our Sun. Coming off this way, there's our galactic Cathara grid, which is our galactic gate system. And it's like gate 6 plugs into gate 6, plugs into gate 6. You know, if you want to take, there's all sorts of mathematical combinations you can take. But basically, our planetary gate 6 plugs into our galactic gate 6, plugs into our universal gate 6, etc. They're like main passageways between them. So this is our galactic grid. And literally, Earth is in the 3 position as well, in the galactic grid. So you have galactic Stargate 1 is Mercury, galactic Stargate 2 is Venus, galactic Stargate 3 is Earth, galactic Stargate 4 over here is Mars, galactic Stargate 5 was a planet called Maldak that was blown up in seeding 2, and it's now the asteroid belt. Part of it is left as the asteroid belt. Galactic Stargate 6 is Jupiter. Galactic Stargate 7 is Saturn. Galactic Stargate 8 is Uranus. Galactic Stargate 9 is Neptune. Galactic Stargate 10 is Pluto. Galactic Stargate 11, this was fun. Galactic Stargate 12 used to be Nibiru. But then they did something to that, and they moved Nibiru into the 11th position. Then they did something to that. The something was they created another part of the beast, which was taking a fragment of Maldak that had been blown up. There was still like half a planet left. There was still a piece of it that was very large. They took part of that, and this is how powerful these guys are. They can move planets. Yes, they can. All right, that's what when you start to work with the Templar energies and the currents of frequency coming down, even from D11, these are powerful electromagnetic currents and photosonic and photoradionic currents. So literally, it took a part of this planet, and first of all, they used the crystalline Templar technologies, universal level, to shift Nibiru from its 12th position into the 11th position. They got rid of the planet that was called Chiron, that was in the 11th position. They blew it up. Part of it ended up as Pluto's moon, Charon, and the other part is this other thing that's floating around down in here, between, I think it's between Saturn and Uranus. There's something called, they call that Chiron, and this Charon, they used to be the planet Chiron that was the natural 11th position. So they blew up Chiron and got rid of that, and they use these to actually conduct some of the energies of the beast. That was part of the beast plan. They moved Nibiru into the orbit that Chiron originally had, so it became the 11th planet. Then they took a part of this planet that had been blown up earlier, and they forced an artificial orbit between this planetary body that was called the Battlestar Wormwood, that was Nibiruan Battlestar Wormwood, with planet Nibiru, and they forced Nibiru into an elliptical orbit that ran between the phantom matrix, and here. Every 3,657, I think, 0.8 years, Nibiru would come back in and circulate through our system, then go back, blink off here, and go back into phantom. This is all the stories of Nibiru that came up, like through the Sumerians and all of that thing. It was real, and these are all connected, but they're also part of the beast. Originally, the artificial orbit was made to use Wormwood as a patrol station. When it became assimilated into as a tool of the beast, originally it was intended to go up and come in into our system, up through the lock, that our galactic lock appears between Jupiter. It's in between Jupiter and Mars. It's in the orbit between Jupiter and Mars, where Maldak was. There's a lock there. It would come into our galaxy through that lock, come behind the sun, and kind of zip around, but it wouldn't go directly between Earth and the sun. But it was like a patrol station, so they could keep track of the planet they hijacked, which was Earth. When it got hijacked by the Weesdeks, and the phantom races, the Anunnaki phantom races, were the original ones that created the Nibiruan wormwood orbit thing. And then they made deals with the Weesdeks, where they turned it over to their control. And in their control, the beast, being assimilated into the beast apparatus, it would change the angle that wormwood would come up into our galactic plane and actually make it go between Earth and the sun, flip around the sun like a ricochet, and then come back, and it would generate such magnetic force that it would literally stop for a moment the whole spin on the galactic Merkaba. The sun would stop, the planets would stop, just for a bit. And I think it's 3 days was the scheduled thing. And once it stopped, then it would reverse spin, and that would pull us all right into the Weesdek black hole system, right into alignment with their orbit. So they assimilated the wormwood Battlestar into the apparatus of the beast. It became the tool of the beast. Now, let me see. This is kind of what it looks like. Kind of. Can I see the next one, please? Sorry to disturb you. Okay. Now. Okay. It almost looks like a cancer, doesn't it? Like bubbles and cells of growths that don't belong there. What this is, remember we just looked at, that was our natural 12 universal stargates, right? These are our galactic ones coming out here. Now up in here, this shows two things. Here's our axis, here's our galactic axis, our universal axis. Here is the, I always get these confused. This one is, if I could read this, it would be a good thing. I have to look at this closer. I always get dyslexic with the two. I think this one, which is phantom. Can you read that? I always get confused on which axis is which. Oh, this is phantom, okay. This one here. This axis would be where the phantom gate system intersects with us, and this axis would be where the Weesdek system interfaces with us. And all up here in this little cluster of gates overlapping each other unnaturally, you have the 666 gate connection. In there you have a lock system, all right? The Azure lock. Now, when the beast activates, which means that final Metatronic heart activates, that's the heart implant that is down in the lowest systems. It's down here, and I believe it's in Epsilon Eridanus. It's in the vicinity of Epsilon Eridanus. That is the anchoring rod. where they can run the frequencies up here, but they had nothing to anchor it down here yet, all the way through our gate system. That last heart of the beast was the last implant system that needed to be activated to be able to pull the current once it came through vertically all the way down. What this creates is, this is what's known as the flaming blue sword of Archangel Michael. It's also called the sign and symbol of the beast. Now I'll show you this in color in a second, a little more color. Comes in through the universal Azure point, through the 666 configuration, shoots out horizontally and vertically into the Cathar grid, forms a sign of the cross or the sword, the flaming blue sword. The sign of the cross, the crucifix, is the sign of the beast. And I don't know a Christian church anywhere that doesn't use it. And that is really, talk about bad sense of humor these guys have. Oh. Because you have people running around trying to do the Christos thing, wanting to be part of the Christ body of the universe, all of that, giving their energy over repeatedly to the beast, to the sign of the beast. Most of the churches were built as zap stations, so the Metatronic implants could be progressively and slowly activated. Make sure you go to church. Wouldn't want to miss your zapping session. We have been soul tricked here. So this was the original. This is what they're intending to do. The reason why we have gone on to Plan B. Plan A was fix it and negotiate out of the problem. There were in 1992, November of 1992, there were the Pleiadian-Sirian agreements where the Anunnaki crew that were part of the Wesedex agreed to not do this. They agreed to not use the beast. They'd be peaceful. We would learn to co-evolve again. They broke that completely by September of 2000, September 12th, 2000. A year later, on the night of the day before the anniversary of their war edict, they did the 9/11, attacks in America. They decided they would activate the beast, and because us pesky little Azurites and such, see, they're not fighting with us, they're fighting with each other. You have what are called Wesedex and Wesedrax. The Wesedex are the Nephilim that are primarily Anunnaki races that were from the Phantom Matrix that hybridized with the Wesedek beetle people and became Wesedex. And then there's the ones that were the Draconian, Omicron Draconian dragon moth and some hybrid reptilian dragon moth from Phantom Matrix that hybridized with the Wesedek beetle people, and they became the Wesedrax. And they hate each other just like they did when their other races had lived in Phantom. These guys are fighting with each other for grid control here, because whoever's mathematics are running through the grids, when whatever falls, will determine what area of their galaxies, what of those 7 heads of the beast, which part the grids will fall into, whether they'll be under Wesedrak control or Wesedek control. So we're stuck in the middle of this stupid war that they decided to have with each other. Now, we're in the middle of the process at this point of moving through Plan B. Plan B was initiated on, I believe, March 23rd, 2002, because they set the first level of activation codes for the beast. That meant it's going to activate, but it didn't say when for sure it was going to activate. There was another set of codes, date codes, that had to be entered in, and they hadn't been. So we weren't given anything on a lot of this at that time. We were just told we're moving into Plan B agenda. Plan B agenda was evac agenda. I said, uh-oh, what went wrong? Right? Why aren't we on plan A, fix things? Which was, you know, like we would try to fix it, work with them with the peace treaties and the whole bit. And they said, well, you know that they did the war edict in September of 2000. Well, they did something else that we'll tell you about later that has to do with what's called the turnstile matrices. Now, the turnstile matrices are something we didn't know about until we went to Calgary, Canada. And we had this very kind of top secret, so secret we didn't even know about it, grid work that had to be done up there. We found out literally the night it had to be done, where the Archangel Michael people were activating up in the Lake, what is it again? Louise. I always want to say Lake Lorraine. I don't know why. But it's Lake Louise area. They were activating the turnstiles up there, which are one of the major control turnstiles. Now these are, again, crystalline apparatus that are implanted in the grids that are the broadcast stations, the receiving and broadcast stations for the blue flame, the blue sword Metatronic current. They were activating that. We didn't know that. We did a round table up there. So when they activated, we sent in the D12 frequency. So it started to have the turnstiles running as much of the D12 as it could, a base 8 D12, because it can't run a whole, base 12 D12 frequency. Boy, were they upset. They didn't like, what did we do? Why are we in trouble? We can tell we're being psychically attacked all over the place now. We really got the Nephilim, Weesadet guys mad. What did we do? They started to give us a little more on it. Now, let me see. I'm going to show you the color ones on these first. It's a little more clear. Good, nice things left. I gotta remember not to touch you because you're drawing stuff and I'm probably making squiggly lines. If you see squiggly lines in this next symbol code, it's because these are the times when I tapped him on the shoulder and said, you've drained some mylar, please. Let's see, do I need this one? Yeah. Yeah, this shows the Nibiru thing. Okay. Now, is that backwards? That looks backwards. No, it's frontwards. That is backwards. It's backwards. Is it backwards? Is it backwards? Yeah, that looks better. Okay. Now, this... Yeah, it is seriously out of focus. That's why I couldn't read the little print at all. Alright. What this shows, again, is where that blue sword from hell comes through our universal gate system. You can follow it around. What this also shows is it's showing you what I was talking about wormwood and how it would be used as the torque drive, enough to give enough push to literally reverse the spin on our solar matrix, which would take it down into alignment with Weesadet. Normally, this kind of like red dotted thing here, that's the normal axis that Nibiru and wormwood would follow. See, what they do is you have Nibiru at one end of an orbit and wormwood at the other end, balancing each other. When one comes into our system, the other goes into phantom, and vice versa. There's a lot of people saying, oh, Nibiru's coming in. No, it's not. Nibiru's in phantom right now. And it's still passing through there. What's coming in is wormwood, which is that piece of Maldak that they turned into a battle star. Normally, it would pass into our system and come up down here in through the lock that's on the end of, like outside of Universal Gate 1, which is in Orion's sword. It would pass up and then finally into our solar system by coming up in the asteroid belt, through the lock that's in the asteroid belt, up into our galactic plane, and it would circle behind the sun. I mean, the sun is 4 here. But it wouldn't, like Earth is over here. It would go up behind the sun, then it would pass back out of our system again and disappear once it went back up into the gate 8 region, I believe. It started to disappear right here, which would be when it hit Orion's belt. It would go back out into Orion's belt in Mintaka, gate 8, and then it would disappear and go back into its orbit in Phantom. And at the same time, way out here, you would start to have Nibiru coming back in for its orbit in. What happens with this, with the flaming blue sword, when that comes through the lock, and it hits Wormwood, when it would naturally be coming up in through the lock into our galactic plane. It hits it and it makes it spin. So instead of going this way, it hits it here, makes it spin and come back around this way, throwing it between Earth and the Sun. Earth is here, the Sun's here. And it ricochets around the Sun. They use a beam that they're actually pulling from Jupiter, which is Galactic Gate 6. They're running a beam, a blue beam, from there that actually pulls it toward it, back around. So it comes up through this way, goes all the way up through our whole Galactic Gate system, and literally takes the whole thing, pulls its axis, pulls Phantom in and pulls them all into reverse spin into the Weesadek axis, which means we tumble, the whole system would tumble into a black hole system. It's ingenious, it's insane, but it's an ingenious way to totally pervert universal divine physics. This was not something they invented overnight. This was something that has taken many, many millions of years to set in motion in terms of Earth time. And this is what we're up against. And what is strong enough to balance this is the use of the flame body technologies. That's why they're being given now. Now, this green thing over here has to do with the ekamaps. And I won't get into that too much, but you know how we had the ekamaps of the God World Gates? We had our universal Vecca, which would be our system with its parallel and the parallel light field, parallel light field and our light field, and our little Eka gates. Here's the Eka gates right here. Here's the 311 connection where our grid plugs into the little Cathara grid gates of the Eka system. Now here you see little bits of dotted lines, and like this 7 here, and those kind of things. This is when you go up to the next level, where it goes from the Veccas and Ekas up to the Akasha level. So through the Akasha gates, they would be running down into our system, this pillar of arc frequency. And this is where the arc project comes in, where they're literally opening the higher gates up in the God worlds to bring down and run through. It would have to come down through. They would run from the Akasha, from the higher levels, it would hit the Akasha level, come through the Eka level, then down through our system. What that was meant to create was the original ARC project, which has been amplified ever since they got in trouble and the beast turned around and was going to bite them. All right, we can put the next one on, please. I won't patch it. I'm sorry. You try not to shake your hand. Is it hot in here or is it just me? It's hot. Oh, this is just a quickie to show you. Yeah, it would be good. Is there anybody out there that could open windows, please? This is just a quickie to show you what we mean when we talk about turnstiles on the planet and the planetary grids. These were the Canadian grids, where they started to show us the turnstile matrices. There are these sites. Notice HARP up in Alaska is connected up there, and this is one of the times when they're supposed to be broadcasting, beginning the broadcast of what they call the golden scepter current, which is part of amplifying the grids to receive the Metatronic infusion. Interestingly, we just heard, I think it was yesterday, that there was an earthquake right up around Fairbanks, Alaska, 0.7 on the Richter. Yeah, and another one in the extreme north of Pakistan. So, yeah, and like Etna has been stirring up as well. Yeah, we were told that Etna was going to erupt a while back, and we kind of just like filed that when we call file 13, just like we'll see what happens file, right, in our minds. But interestingly, November or December period of 2002 was the time when they were supposed, the UIR, which are the United Intruder Resistance, that are the Illuminati level of the Weesadegs, were going to start activating the HARP system to progressively build more of the frequencies to bring in the Metatronics. Now, all of that's been amplified even since it was published in the Voyager's Volume 2 Second Edition book, because we weren't even on Plan B yet, and they were going to do that. But I just found it interesting that in these turnstile matrices, now see these little things that look like stars shooting out all over? You have a main implant set, and they radiate out through very specific grid lines that run primarily diagonal. Some of them interface with our horizontal ley lines, some with our vertical axiotonals. But they actually spin, and they transmit, when they're activated fully, will transmit the blue sword current all the way through all of the grids, all of the ley lines on our planet, all of the axiotonal lines on our planet. This is the North American grid system of what are called the Michael-Mary turnstiles. They called them the Michael-Mary because it has to do with the Archangel Michael and the Mother Mary. They call it the unification. These groups are groups, all right? The Mother Mary was actually affiliated with the Palladian groups of Anunnaki. The Archangel Michael and Palladian Nibiru, primarily Palladian, but they kind of got involved with the Thoth group. The name's Isis, or another way to say Mother Mary. All right, these are all involved with the ones who were in Phantom. They made deals with the Weesadek Anunnaki races that were in the Weesadek matrix. So the Michael-Mary union, Archangel Michael, was the code name for the family of Weesadek Nephilim Anunnaki from the Weesadek matrix. So there was another name for the Palladian Nibiru and Anunnaki were the Luciferians. These are family names. We actually have some of the family trees on to show where those name combinations come from. Where you have the Satane family of Anunnaki, who are actually part Draconian and didn't like the Luciferian groups, right? So all this stuff that's been woven into our books, it's all about families. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to bump you. Okay. Anyway, the turnstiles, there's another complex set of turnstiles that run through into the European grids and control the European grids. From what I understand so far, they haven't given us a lot on this, but the European grids actually control the North American grid system. These are run through Rennes-le-Château. Yeah, it's also known as the Michael-Mary line that runs down in through Europe. 99% of all the Templar teachings that are coming out here, the Paracletes, all sorts of Thothian schools, Isis schools, all of that, they're all very carefully dealing with the Merlin grids, which are the Archangel Michael grids, which are the Metatronic grids, to control the entire turnstile matrix. This is the system, this is the circulatory system, to once it hits our planet and is anchored here, it spreads the Metatronic blue sword all the way through the entire planetary grids, which would reverse all of the grids as it goes. Now, of course, there is a partial antidote to this, or we wouldn't even bother having the discussion, because there wouldn't be anything you could do. So there are things that the guardians are doing and that we're, part of helping. Now, when we go to Rennes-le-Chateau, it's going to be interesting. We told them it wasn't going to work. That it's very dangerous to play with fire. You can get burned. Beasts can bite you. Well, their UIR people and the Wisdex behind them are in a situation where they will get red pulse through their matrix because of the links in the electrostatic net field on this planet that are still fused together because they didn't reverse enough of the grids fully here yet. There's a 31 to 51% majority phase lock, and that leaves a big hole for red pulses to go flying through and blow them up. The only way to stop that is to run the frequencies of the scepters that will allow natural separation back into its organic pattern, where like the Metatronics will go the Metatronic way. The parts that aren't Metatronic will naturally be separated instead of separated through being combusted and turned back into particle dust. That won't happen. So anything, be it a planetary body, a piece of the planetary body, or a person that has part Metatronic and part not Metatronic, and that 31 to 51%, is going to experience. The Earth is having a flame body activation, and through the scepters coming in, it will gently allow the two pieces to go their way without causing harm to either of them. If this wasn't done, the entire planet would be on the way for red pulse, and we would be on priority evac training, which means only the ones that would be capable of being taken off physically would even be told about it. Because why torture people? Say, oh yeah, we can do this, but you can't. You know what I mean? So it would only be the people who are biologically capable. And that's not a lot, because even if we're working with the flame body stuff, we just got this stuff. It takes a while to clear the mutations out of the DNA. It takes a while to activate. That's why they're giving it to us now. So in case things in the let's do our best to fix it plan, because it's going to the separation must happen now, or it will be disastrous for both sides. So they're not fighting with us. They're not trying to, the UIR people and the Wisdex aren't attacking indigos anymore. They were before. Because we were, both sides were. Both the Wisdex and the Wisdex were. Because we were healing grids out from under both of them. So neither of them could get them. They didn't have anything to fight over. We'd come in, run D12, and they couldn't touch it. Because it was healed and they couldn't run the frequency. Now, it's already decided. The grid's phase locked, which means locked into their angular rotation of particle spin and their main orientation. However much percentage of whatever they had in them when that phase lock occurred is what they're going to go through the stellar activation cycle with. Now, because of this, there's nothing more to fight over. We can't go in and heal grids out from under them. We're no longer a threat. And we're really, really needed now because they've got themselves in trouble. If we don't go into sites and their sites as well to run the codes for the separation, for the scepters to come through so they can naturally separate the two fields, those areas of this planet are going to be ripped apart in one way or another. And the black hole systems are going to have an absolute mess on their hands. Well, they're going to have just implosion, universal implosions in various areas. So, what we're being asked to do is to come in. They're allowing us. They're not picking on us anymore. They're not attacking indigos anymore, saying, we hate this, but yes, come into this site, would you please? They know what sites that we need to go, and we know what sites we need to run the scepter codes. Rennes-le-Chateau is going to be very interesting, because that is the central hub. that controls the other control sites within the turnstile matrices. When the Rennes-le-Chateau is located, Rennes-le-Chateau is located on the location of their Avalon seal implant, the planetary Avalon seal implant. The planetary Avalon seal implant, whatever coding that holds, communicates down to the 666 seal implant and communicates the same pattern to all the 4 hearts of Metatron, and that's what will go through the grids. So we go into Rennes-le-Chateau and we run the scepter coding, and they're letting us do it. They're inviting us in to do it because they're in big trouble if somebody doesn't do it. It will mean that Rennes-le-Chateau and the Avalon seal, which was activated on May 23rd, 2002, and that's why we went into Plan B, because once that started, you can't stop the beast from activating. The beast itself, the turnstiles here from the Avalon seal will begin transmitting the separation codes. So it will ease for both sides. There's going to be a separation in the planetary radial bodies, but it's not going to be as awful as it could have been if the beast was just allowed to do its thing. You can't stop it, but there is something else that can be done, which is to run the scepter pillars. But they have to be run in a very particular way, which is instead of coming down in the universal gates, which is called the path of Amareya, which follows 12 to 9 to 6 to 3 and down into 1. It has to come down the main vertical pillar. Now, the certain groups of the Ezek controlled the gate 11, universal gate 11 setup, and they could actually have bounced it back to blow up the inner earth gates. They wanted to do that, the inner Eka gates. But because they realized the dilemma they're in, and that attempt didn't work, they didn't get through the force field, even though they tried to bounce back frequency coming from the Eka gates to make them blow themselves out. It didn't work. They have to turn that over to the guardian races of the Eka, to the people that are running the Agartha temple. And from there, the arcs of frequency that come from the pillars and the Amareya flame from the higher God worlds will come down not only through the Amareya side, but through all three pillars in the universal Kathara grid. That will create something called the Hitharo, which we'll talk about in a minute or two. Can we go to the next one, please? Thank you. Just want to get through this quick, because I think this one shows. Now, originally the ARC project looked like this. This is the one. Originally, the Amareya ARC project looked like this. This was before they were going to agree to allow us to assist them and ourselves. The gates here would open when the blue sword current came through. You can see the symbol of the 666 there better. It really shows you the cross that occurs. We were going to have to run the Amareya flame from the center Azure point in the inner Eka, which was receiving the pillars and things from the higher ones, down through the 311 gate connection. We'd have to go through 12 and simultaneously into 11, which was going to cause a problem because the other side controls a lot of the grids there, but then down through the 12 to 9 to 6 to 3 connection, and then we could run it 12, 9, 6, 3. This is the path of Amareya. It would have allowed for a certain strength of frequency arc to be run, and it would have then arced back up into Temple 6 in the inner Earth Eka gates, stargates. That would have created, it's like a sail I remember thinking of this song, "Come Sail Away," yeah, indeed, where it would have created literally a stabilizing, a sail-shaped thing, a frequency running through our planetary and galactic and universal grids that would have held up at least some of the grids from falling, but the rest would have fallen into the black hole system. Now, what's going to happen with the amplified arc project that has to do with the Hitharo is something different. Well, I'm going to show you one more thing on this too. What this was going to look like on the planet, the original arc project. Can we get the next one, please? I'm sorry to keep distracting you. That way, I think. Let's see. HE-THAR-O, Hitharo. And it means the great silence. And it's a physics term. Actually, I'll explain that a little bit later. Now, after the arcs came through, and they came through into Earth's Templar, this is the original arc project, where I'm not even going to try to explain. It goes from here to here to here to here. There are a series of large arcs called the Amareya arcs. They were the mother arcs. Now, coming down into our parallel system would be the father arcs. This has the difference between what is Ire or Mane coded. When we talk about the God force currents, what is carrying the electrical, what is carrying the magnetic. We would have received the magnetics, the primary magnetics, which were the Ire currents, mother arcs, and the parallel system, all the way down, the universal parallel system, would have received the Mane arcs. What the new thing allows us to do is to run a full Manu arc all the way through all of them. Now, the Manu is a combination of the Mane and the Ire put together. So you will not get the not only get the mother arcs and the father arcs, you will also get the, as they call it, the divine spirit arc, where you get the full Manu force that can anchor here. It's the strongest force you can run, the strongest stabilizing frequency you can run. Now, all of this mess was running through, there's things called these 8 points. These are the 12 points, 12 Rouchet points. Remember how we talk about the Rouchet and the 12 points of the Rouchet, where the scepter pillars anchor? Now, the arcs had to come in first in order to open up the areas that receive the scepter pillars in the planetary shields. These are the areas, these numbered, that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are not our gate sites. These are where the scepter pillars would naturally come in. Now, they followed the mathematics of the shape of the Rouchet, but just like you don't see the cathargoids spread out neatly on the planet, the gates are, it's the mathematical coding underneath them, as opposed to where they show up when you draw them on their actual locations. Same with these. These are holding the Rouchet pattern. This is where those scepter pillars would anchor once they came through the gates after the arcs opened up the whole Templar for that to happen. If you notice, North America, you can't see anything under the arcs. North America is this poor little thing over here. There's not one scepter pillar anywhere near America. This is why America has been a target for so long, because they figured, well, if they manage to do the scepters and we can't pull everything in, at least we can pretty much guarantee we can get that place, because it was relatively unprotected. They did the same thing to the areas of Atlantis, where there used to be a continent in there between the North American continents and Europe, in between Africa, Africa down here, there was a continent right in here, and they literally pulled in 99% of it into the Ezek black hole. That's why they can go down underwater as far as they want. They might find a few vases, but they're not going to find the continent because it kept going once it sunk. It literally reverse spin, its particles disappeared from here and remanifested at a different angular rotation of particle spin in a different place. It was called phantom Ezek matrix. This whole thing is about the return of the Atlantean masters as one of the clarion calls that the other side uses. It's the Atlantean masters from the Ezek matrix that we're talking about, that are coming back, they're doing their teachings here. It's really amazing when you start to realize who the names are when you go to like New Age conferences and all that kind of stuff. Half the time they don't realize who they are. You know, they're people that are channeling other people. They think they're good guys because they told them they were, and they have no idea that it's all connected to this. Everything from the Bible text and Revelation to all of the mystery schools and all that, they were all about this. But this was the high level of knowledge. It was not only where the stargates were, the whole lineup, the whole thing, but what the problem was, what the agenda was, and how to fix it. And that's why all the metaphysics were hidden for so long. Because if we could get to this knowledge, we could do something to stop the complete fall that was planned for this time frame. So anyway, the original ARC project would leave the ability to run tiny arcs, baby arcs, through the American axiotonal line system, which would have given it some support. But it was like, it already looks like Swiss cheese over there in the astral, the planetary grids, what's rising and what's falling. And I've asked them which are the holes and which is the cheese slice. You know how Swiss cheese has all little holes, like are the holes rising or are they falling? And there seems to be more of the cheese slice than there are holes. And they said, you don't want an answer right now. Wait till we work on the ARC project a bit more. So the areas that are actually holes are the parts that are going up. They're not the parts that are going down. The holes in the cheese. They're the little bits of areas here and there that have enough, they can hold a base 12 in the grid, so they can link into what's called the universal trion meage field, which is the universal radial body that's going to be supported by the 12 scepter pillars coming down from the anchor God worlds. What's going to happen now, which means we have a whole lot more to work with and we're not being attacked by them anymore because they need us. Can I have the next graph, please? Thank you. Yeah. It's not really considered the pillar, it's the center point of the Rusha. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get there when I get to the that's part of the amplified project. Okay. That have to do with what's called the crimson crest, where there's like a almost red magenta flame in the auric field, where there should be the natural colors, and there's divisions between the color levels in the inner auric field. So they're giving us some signs and symbols as far as when you start to get your inner vision on, if you see that kind of thing, to, you know, it's the crimson crest. Know you're dealing with an embodied D11 dark avatar being. And they're a new race of beings. They're considering themselves a new race of beings. Yeah, a whole body snatched new race of beings. They are indigos that have been completely reversed, monanically reversed indigos. And there are, what is it, 20 million of them? 20 million of them to complete their body snatches on May 27th of 2003. That's their first wave. Full birth wave. So it ought to get really interesting in the drama as we move along. As long as we're not one of them, it's like, you know, so that's why we're given flame body things, because if we're activating our flame body, that can't happen to us as indigos. Yes? Oh, once it's fully separated, yes. They're going back to Évesek. But in the meantime, the separation will occur in stages. And the stages will begin. Right now, it's actually, there's another graph I want to show you that will embody, this will show this a little bit better. That's the last one. Now, this one, okay. And again, I didn't have my pen, so we have scratchy little pencil things down here. But remember, this is the gate system of our universal Vecca, right? This is our 12 gates here. This is our parallel gates, our light field, parallel light field. Here we have, here I go dyslexic again, the phantom axis as it comes down through our system. Here we have the Évesek axis as it comes down through our system. Over here is the axis of what the inner Eka axis. See its main vertical axis? See that little set? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those little gates? They're the inner Eka, 12 stargates. And they're coming in at this axis. Right now, we have 1/3 of our planetary grids and our galactic and universal grids on its natural axis. 2/3 are on the phantom axis. The Évesek axis is over here, and what their plan is, what their intention was with the beast, was literally to, as these come together in rotation, to pull them both into there. Now this one, ours, is supposed to be going counterclockwise, while both the phantom and the Évesek are going in a clockwise rotation. That rotation has to do with the position in, they call them Vecca quadrants. Here's quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. And it's how energy comes in to the Vecca systems from the Eka. It spirals in this way, and like I think this one, yeah, this one's clockwise, then it comes back through the locks, and it comes in counterclockwise there, then it comes in clockwise here, then it comes in counterclockwise here. That actually determines the natural spin for the systems in each of the Veccas. So we're supposed to be on the counterclockwise spin. What they're trying to do is whip us down into an artificial clockwise spin to match theirs that would pull these three axes together into orientation with here, and would literally rip this part out at D11.5, would take this and this, which means it would take part of the inner Eka as well. They're after the Eka, not just the Vecca systems. And it would rip this whole thing. And remember how we showed, like, on the bigger Akasha AM map, where our little systems were over here, and way over here was the black hole system, right? It would literally whip them all down through the Arimathea wormhole and suck them all in. That's their agenda. Now what needs to be done? Right now, we're the 1/3 of our grids that are okay are in this axis. The 2/3 are in phantom axis. We need to get up here, which is the bridge zone axis, which is in alignment where we can receive the full axial support of the 12 gates from the inner Eka. That means there's a shift in Merkaba axis that has to take place in this universe, not just on the planetary level or the solar system level. Good thing too, because it would be a lot more chaotic if it was just happening on a planetary or solar level. Because it's happening on the entire universal level in this 15-dimensional system, they will all the systems will shift together, the planetary and galactic ones. There will be less chaos happening on the smaller levels because the entire larger picture is shifting with them. But what constitutes what is taking place, first of all, is an acceleration. We need to accelerate in time and in frequency to what would be this point in the maps that will allow us to plug in to this pillar called the bridge zone, this pillar of frequency that's going to be generated through the scepters coming down from the ecosystem. Now, in the meantime, we're in the middle of this, where part of us is here and part of us is in the phantom, and the phantom part of us is moving that way toward the Weesadak, going clockwise. Well, this part of us, and this is not just us, it's our Merkaba as well. All right, part of our Merkaba is spinning that way, heading toward Weesadak. The other part is spinning this way, heading toward Bridge Zone. There's, between now and May 27th of 2003, there's going to be a merging that takes place, a temporary merging between phantom, over here, the part of us that has been in phantom, and the part that isn't, which means we're going to see some very interesting people and things and agendas popping up. It's like the shadows coming up to visit. We're going to pass through each other. As this one's moving here and this one's moving this way, there's going to be a point where we completely overlap. That full overlap point will occur on May 27, 2003. And from that point, when the frequencies are going to be run through here, they will start to pull the part of our grids that are still in good shape, will start to pull them up this way, and the separation will start to begin, where the ones that are coded to Metatronics will continue in their movement that way, and the others will begin to pull this way. And the two reality fields will literally, the two pieces of the Merkaba field will literally split apart. And I don't mean top and bottom split apart. I mean a version of top and bottom together. There will be two separate Merkaba fields formed out of the one now. There are actually two separate ones already that are being statically held together by the net. It means the net, the Nibiruan electrostatic transduction field, is going to come down progressively. And that's good. That means we get to open to our natural currents. But it's a shift that's going to start on May 27, 2003, and it's going to go, I believe there are 6 phases of it. The first phase is May 27, 2003. The second is August 12, 2003. The third is August 12, 2004, then August 12, 2005, August 12, 2006, and the final one is December 21st, 2012. So we are going to literally watch a separation in fields of consciousness, fields of people. What this is going to look like yet, I can't even tell you, but I can tell you I found my first, bumped into our first triad meage field. Triad meage field is light sound field. They are protection areas that are literally already in the natural radial body structure. Meage field is light sound field. They are protection areas that are literally already in the natural radial body structure, parts of the grids. We moved on to one in England. We didn't know it was one. They didn't tell us it was when we rented it. But we just moved on to it. And you can feel the skin. It's like passing through a real thin onion skin of energy at a certain spot. And it's like we're about 6 feet away from each other as far as, no, I think the spot's here. No, I feel it here. Right outside our driveway. No, it's right inside the driveway. Right? So it's like a level of layer. And I think he's probably right, because he senses the electricals faster than I do, and they'd be on the outside. So I think that's what it is. But anyway, there are going to be these areas that literally are surrounded by these bubbles that are coded to the bridge zone. And these are areas sometimes we'll be guided to go to those spaces just to pick up more amplification or to pick up some of the coding. Then we can go back home and live even if we're on a place that might not be there in 2012. At least right now, you're holding enough frequency to be there. You can make a difference as a flame body activated person in how much of the grids can be pulled. Because right now we have 31 to 51% of the grids that are in that phase lock that need to separate, which means some of those are going to come up. We can't undo the phase lock, but we can provide the frequency platform as people that are holding this frequency to feed the grids that platform so they can plug into the codes that are in us that will allow them to plug into the grid zone. So it's a big story we're in the middle of right now. Yes.
So it's essentially the activation of the bees that started and Maxis with the
Yeah. And like the whole set of mechanics that has to do with the orbit of Nibiru and Wormwood and all that stuff. Technically it speeds up the orbit of Nibiru and Wormwood, and that starts to create magnetic realities all through the planetary systems that those bodies pass through. But anyway, we're these little bubbles here. We're going to be moving this way until we phase lock into here in 2012, which means we're in full pillar protection of the bridge zone, which connects us directly through the Eka into into literally the highest level, all the way up to the Kasha Ea. And that will give us about 2,000 or so years of a cycle of time that isn't normally there, but a new cycle of time, a new radial body for us to evolve our frequency within, and our planet and our universe to evolve its frequency within until it would get back to a normal place in its original structure and re-evolve its divine blueprint completely.